Hey strangers, welcome to another episode of the Strange Sessions. I am Kurt.
I'm Krista.
And we are your Goose and Maverick, your Top Guns on the highway to the Stranger Zone.
Can I be Maverick?
You can be Maverick.
Because Goose dies, you know.
That's all right.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Nice. I like it.
Tonight's episode is going to be about Mothman.
Yeah.
It is our fifth.
Episode
sure that's
5,
our fifth.
yeah.
Yes, our fifth episode.
Our oodles of fans can correct us if we're wrong.
We have literally dozen fans.
Dozen.
So
yep, literally dozen.
We're okay with that.
Maybe half dozen.
We're okay. We're okay with that.
Yeah. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And I think we're off to a pretty good start.
I think so too. So do we have any housekeeping, shout-outs?
We do have a little bit of housekeeping.
Okay.
Sarah McFarlane, she's our Canadian fan.
Okay. Our one Canadian fan.
She's our diplomat.
She's
to the
representing
Canadian people.
the Canadians.
You represent us, the Canadians.
Okay.
So it's a big job. It's a big task, but she's up for it.
Okay.
She told me that when we were talking about Elisa Lam and about her skin coming off, that I called it gloving, but it is actually degloving.
Degloving, okay.
Yes, I was close.
Thank you for the correction.
Yes, so thank you for that, Sarah.
Yeah, you were close. That was close.
I was pretty close. She also told me that haggis is actually really good.
Oh, the
thing that's like in the stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah. She said it tastes like meatloaf. It's one of her favorite foods.
I like meatloaf.
Yeah. You know, I love my pizza. I love my chicken tikka masala, but you know, give me a bottle of ketchup and a big brick of meatloaf and I'll go to town on that. So I would actually try haggis if she likes it. I trust her.
If you put it in front of me and didn't tell me what it was, I'd probably try it.
Yeah.
If you explained it first, I might be a little, I don't know.
I'd still try it. I've eaten weirder stuff.
Yeah.
So,
for example,
no,
I'm just kidding.
That was the drinking something.
That's another
weird.
episode. Oh yeah,
I talked about that with a couple people. I'll bring that up at some future point.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Sarah. And Sophie Bloomquist, she's one of our listeners. She wanted me to do a podcast with her originally.
Long-time friend of Kurt's.
A very long-time friend. And she thought possibly that what Elisa Lam was doing with their hands in that video was sign language.
Oh.
Which I never... She brought this up to me in the past,
but I
kind of forgot about that. But it actually is kind of possible. So she said she was just hoping that like there would be if somebody would have an idea if she was into doing ASL.
Or if somebody knows sign language, would they recognize any of that?
Yeah. So she brought that up, which I thought was a really valid point.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So
good
that's
critical thinking, Sophie.
Our
housekeeping?
Yes.
Are we ready for the shout-out?
Yes. I want to give a shout-out to my longtime good friend, Jim Aulick. He is one of my best friends. He messaged me last week, and he said he doesn't really believe in any of the stuff we talk about, but he loves listening to us because we make it interesting.
Oh, fun.
So thanks, Jim. You'll change your tune. You get a visit by the Men in Black or Black Eyed Kids or Mothman. You'll be singing a different tune about not believing
He'll be sitting in this chair over here shaking and telling his story.
Shaking and crying like a schoolgirl that skinned her knee.
And who requested this episode today?
This episode, Mothman, was suggested by both Brittany Zahn, BDZ, and Barry Dahlberg, one of our best buddies.
Yeah.
So they both suggested this.
Sweet. Thanks,
Do you have any shout-outs?
I do. I wanted to give a shout-out to Sarah and Dave, who apparently just started listening to our show. And I got to meet at a housewarming party for someone last weekend, which was a little strange, having a complete stranger come up to you and say, oh, my God, it's so weird hearing the voice coming out of someone,
it was cute when she squealed when you said hi to her because she recognized your voice from the podcast.
It was kind of surreal.
Yeah, that was
very cool.
That was like the first brush with fans.
A fan. Yeah. They were really fun to talk to, though. They had a lot of knowledge about the paranormal, and you can tell they're really interested in it. So I hope that they're enjoying, guys. I hope you're enjoying the show. And if you have any topics you want us to talk about, let us know.
Yep, please drop us a line. We're always looking for topic suggestions or feedback, stuff we could do better.
You want to come on the show?
That'd
be great.
Yes, any of that stuff. Just please get in touch with us.
Sounds good.
Is that it for our shout-outs and housekeeping?
Yeah.
Okay, today's topic is Mothman.
Crazy.
Very crazy stuff.
What I find interesting, and we'll have to go into what is Mothman, because not everybody knows what this is and where and when it originated. But what I find so interesting about this is that when this happened originally, it was all over the news. It was in the newspapers. It wasn't just like a word of mouth thing that happened. There were a bunch of eyewitnesses.
No, there were a lot of eyewitnesses, and it was just kind of a crazy situation.
So do you have the history of like when the first sighting?
I have the history. Okay, for the, at the start of the Mothman story, we're going back to 1966, which is a ways back. Beetles were big. Steam engine was just invented. World War I was just ending.
All right.
I don't know. I got a D in history. So
I was going to say, is that
I have no idea.
Poodle skirts, or is that the 50s?
I think of poodle skirts.
I'm not sure.
Civil War. I don't know.
I think you might be a little off.
But yeah, it started, the what people consider to be the first actual sighting was on November 12th, 1966, when 5 men were digging a grave in a cemetery in, I believe it's called Clendenin, West Virginia. Why 5 people were doing it, I don't know. If it was like a rush job.
It's a really big grave.
Yeah. I don't know.
Really deep.
I don't know. But
maybe they were robbing it.
No.
It was okay. They were actually digging it.
Grave
so
diggers.
This isn't the bridge. This is
before.
Prior to the bridge.
This is a year before.
Oh,
this is 1966.
Okay, I'm learning something right now,
This is actually
folks.
considered the first sighting, although there had been sightings going way back in history, apparently.
Okay.
But this is the first one where people, at the start of what they call the Mothman.
Okay.
These 5 men were digging a grave in this cemetery in West Virginia when they saw what appeared to be a human-sized creature fly from a tree, swoop over their heads, and fly away.
Did they see the eyes at all?
No.
Okay.
They didn't mention really the eyes, just the fact that it was human-sized.
It was flying.
And it was flying.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But all 5 of them saw it,
yes.
and they reported it?
Yes.
Okay.
So then 3 days later is the big sighting. This is the one that everybody kind of knows. Yeah. The night of November 15th, 1966, in nearby Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which is kind of the hub of the Mothman stuff.
Yeah. Don't they have like a
they have a statue.
or
They have
something
a cool
every
statue.
year?
They have
Yeah,
a neat
I've
statue
seen
of
that.
Mothman. So the night of November 15th, 2 young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mellette, and Roger's cousin Lonnie were out driving.
Okay.
He was pretty much the fifth wheel, I'm guessing. They were out driving, and they stopped at a local teen makeout spot outside an abandoned West Virginia ordinance. I don't know. That's what it was.
That's where Roger's cousin doing there?
I don't know. Maybe he was videotaping it. I have no idea, but it was just kind of weird that they were. But this, from what it sounds like, this spot that they went, it was the West Virginia Ordnance Works. It was an abandoned TNT factory.
Maybe they were smoking some doobie.
They might have been.
Okay.
It was 1966.
It was the 60s.
It was the 60s.
All right.
Little puff.
I think we're getting somewhere now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this was an abandoned TNT factory that a lot of the teenagers hung out at.
Okay.
Which I don't know. That whole area was called the TNT area.
The TNT.
Because it had just tons of, there were tunnels. There were little, I think they called them igloos, like little buildings where they were storing ammunition and TNT and all this stuff.
Sounds like a great place to go smoke.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So then, the 2 couples and their cousin, they went there and they pulled up to the gate and they noticed what it seemed to be 2 glowing red eyes standing at the gate looking at them.
Okay.
They couldn't figure out what it was, and then they saw that the eyes were moving closer to the car. They turned on the lights, and the passengers saw what appeared to be a 7-foot-tall creature with huge wings folded behind its back, which would freak anybody out.
Yeah.
Roger stepped on the gas, backed out, started going, and the creature started following him. They saw the creature fly, and what they said was weird was that the creature had wings, but when it took off to fly, it didn't flap its wings. They said it just kind of rose off the ground.
Really?
Yeah, which was weird.
That's strange.
That is very strange.
This reminds me of Jeepers Creepers. Do you think he's based off of the Mothman?
It very well could be. It very well could be.
Oh, those movies.
So it did this levitation thing, came off the ground, and started flying after them. And they started to panic. He was going at speeds up to and exceeding 100 miles an hour, and this thing was keeping pace with the car. They said the creature never seemed to flap its wings. It just seemed to hover in the air and fly after the car.
So another group of 5 people.
No, this was the same 5 people. This was the 2
But the grave diggers, there were
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
Okay.
The grave diggers didn't, they said they just saw it fly out of the tree. I didn't really see anything about if it flapped its wings or anything like that. They just said it flew out of the tree.
That's interesting. I don't know. I'm making a correlation with it probably.
But these
isn't
people in the car
Okay.
said it didn't flap its wings. It just seemed to hover.
Okay.
So it chased them 100 miles an hour. It chased them back to town. They drove back to town. As they approached the police department building, the creature disappeared. The frightened people went in and they told Deputy Millard Halstead what had happened. And Halstead maintained that he had known them all their life and that they weren't the kind of people to make stuff up or to lie about this stuff. He split them up, took them to different rooms, and everybody had the same story.
Wow.
So he didn't know what to make of it, so he followed them back to the factory. And when they got back to the factory, there was no trace of anything.
Okay.
So that same night, a man in town named Newell Partridge claimed that he saw the creature in a field near his house. He said that somehow the creature was affecting his television and was creating a buzzing sound and distorting the screen on his television.
Okay.
So he went out to a field and looked with his flashlight, and he shined the flashlight at the field, and he said there's a creature with red eyes staring back at him. He had his German Shepherd dog, and the German Shepherd dog went running after the creature. And he went back to the house, and that was the last he saw of his dog. He never saw. And what's weird is that the couple that were at the TNT factory that saw him the first time said that they noticed that there was a dead dog on the side of the road.
Really?
So they don't know if that's possibly
It's what it feeds off
the
of or
same
something?
dog. It could have been
Oh.
the same dog that he carried with him there.
Maybe.
They don't know. It's just that was one of the things that the couples brought up was
Common.
that there was a dead dog, that they saw a
Interesting.
dead dog on the road.
Okay.
And then the next night, a young woman named Marcella Bennett was visiting some friends that lived close to the TNT area. As she left their house and walked back to her car, she saw a large gray human-sized creature with giant wings and glowing red eyes. She fell to the ground, and I've seen different accounts of this. She had her infant daughter with her. Some say she fell on top of her daughter. Some say her daughter fell to her side. But she said she was basically paralyzed with fear and couldn't move.
Wow.
And after a little bit, she shook it off. She got up. She went to the house, and they called the police. And the people in the house that she was friends with said that they saw the creature going from window to window, peering through the window into the house.
Oh,
And
that
when
just
the-
gave me the
I know.
willies.
And when the police got there was no sign of the creature.
So these things are all happening kind of like within
These
a
were
week.
all within 2 days.
Oh,
this
2
was
days.
the first two, the guy with the dog, the couple, that was one night, and then the girl with the infant daughter seeing it was the following night.
And how far away is this from the grave diggers and the
I'm not sure.
people at the TNT?
I'm not
factory?
sure. The grave
it makes
diggers
me
was near
nearby.
Point Pleasant,
Yeah.
but these other things all took place in Point Pleasant.
It makes me wonder how much of those first couple of stories had already spread by word of mouth.
That's what I don't know.
Or,
I'm not
are
sure.
all these people just separately reporting similar incidents,
Yeah, but they all
without prior
Yeah,
knowledge.
because they all basically sound the same. Creature with wings, with red eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A human
Yeah, so
size.
those were 2 days. Within 2 days, within 1 day of each other.
Okay.
And then during that time, several people in the town also reported seeing mysterious lights in the sky. And as the month went on, more and more people would see things.
I wonder what the lights in the sky have to do with it. Is it like the eyes?
We'll
or...
get into that with the theories.
Okay.
That's what some people... But there were a lot of correlations between lights in the sky and Mothman showing up. During the next few days, 2 volunteer firemen claimed to see an enormous bird with large red eyes. And several people, more people saw mysterious lights, called the police, and all that. And these actually continued for the following year.
Wow.
That more and more people were seeing things. And a big part of the town's population saw things. And the town was starting to get freaked out because they felt they were under siege from something.
Were any of these people reporting tragedies happening after seeing it?
No. Oh,
Okay.
there was weird. I couldn't really...
Because isn't that like
I couldn't. Some of the articles mentioned stuff, and some of the articles didn't, so I
Okay.
couldn't really get a good grasp.
because it's
But there
supposed to be a
weren't
bad
really
omen.
there weren't really tragedies, but there were things like some of the people that saw the Mothman said they started to have problems with their eyes, that they would have eye trouble, that they wouldn't be able to see things. There was a report that Marcella, the one with the infant daughter, that after she saw the Mothman, at random times her ear would start to bleed really badly,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
never a good thing.
No.
And people would say that they were plagued by nightmares after seeing the Mothman, and that they were harassed with phone calls.
Wow.
Yeah. And some people said that they had visions of future catastrophes. But there was just so much, like I said, some articles would mention that, some articles didn't.
How much of it is embellishment?
Yeah, so you don't really know what was embellishment and what was not.
Yeah.
But for this year, these people were seeing just crazy things. A lot of people reported seeing this Mothman.
I didn't know there were that many sightings back then.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot. I couldn't find a lot of, accounts. Every now and then it would say so-and-so reported seeing a large bird-like figure in their yard.
Mm-hmm.
But there weren't, the best accounts were the three that I said.
Mm-hmm.
The couple, the guy with the dog, and the girl with the infant daughter.
Yeah.
So those continued for about a year. The town was getting freaked out because
This is
all
still
this stuff
Point
was
Pleasant,
happening.
right?
Still Point Pleasant.
Okay.
And then on December 15th, 1967, there was a bridge in town called the Silver Bridge, which connected Point Pleasant with Gallipolis, I believe, Ohio. And during rush hour on December 15th, the bridge collapsed, killing 46 people. And after the bridge collapsed, there were basically no more sightings of Mothman. So that's when, I don't know, because John Keel wrote a book called The Mothman Prophecies. And he was the one, I think, that kind of correlated the Mothman with the bridge incident.
Well, there are sightings of the Mothman on the bridge.
Supposedly. I couldn't find any good accounts of that.
Oh, there's photos, though.
That's a different bridge.
Is it really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. That's not that bridge.
Okay.
I believe that was a different bridge.
Okay, because it's a black and white photo. It's definitely from like the 60s.
I'll have to double check, but I don't think it was that bridge. But I've seen that picture.
Yeah, it's like perched up on like
that picture's kind of sketchy.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But I think that picture was published in the newspapers. Like that's from that time.
It might have been, but it's hard to.
It's really
make
grainy,
out, and it's hard to make out what it is.
Yeah.
We'll put it on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
So you can see what we're talking about. And I can't remember if it was that bridge or not.
I thought it was.
I could look it up now, but we don't have the internet
Yeah.
or a phone signal.
Yeah, so nobody come here and try to murder us.
Yeah,
we have no
crazy fans. No crazy
help.
fans, please come here.
But if you want to be on the podcast,
if you want to be on the
join
podcast
us.
first and then kill us, go ahead.
No, don't do that either.
Don't do that either. But
we'll
yeah,
turn into a my favorite murder story.
after the bridge collapsed, there were no more sightings of Mothman
in Point Pleasant.
Yes. So I think John Keel was the one that associated the two with each other, that it was this tragedy with the Mothman. And at that point, there were like three different ideas. One idea was that the Mothman or Mothmen or whatever was there was the cause for the bridge to collapse, that they caused that to happen.
Yeah.
The other theory is that they were warning people that
omen,
was going to happen.
Right.
And the third theory I read was that they were there to witness it happening, like the observers from the TV show Fringe, that would just be at moments in history where something like a catastrophe, and they would just be there to witness it themselves.
Have you ever heard of the Dean Koontz series Odd Thomas?
I have, but I never read it.
Oh, it's so good. And there are these things in the books called, I'm probably saying it wrong. It's how I pronounce it in my mind, Bodocs, but they come out only to Odd Thomas can see them, but they come and they surround someone who's about to have some kind of tragic thing happen to them. Because they feed off of that negative energy.
Yeah. And that was one of these things, one of these three theories is that they're there just to watch it, just to witness it. And those are the three theories. The theory that most people seem to go with is that they are an omen, that if they show up, something bad is going to happen in the near future.
So are there any reports of people actually being attacked by
No, not that I saw.
Yeah, I don't think I did either.
Did
you know there was a documentary on a group that was investigating like in the La Crosse area?
No.
For Mothman?
No, I've never seen. I looked for reports of Mothman in Wisconsin, but I didn't really find much of anything.
This is in the Trombolo, I think it's called, area. There's like a mountain right along the Mississippi, and people have I've climbed that mountain actually. It's not really a mountain. I'm using air quotes.
You didn't see Mothman?
No, I didn't see Mothman. And of course, one of the theories is also that it's just a huge owl.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that with
Okay.
theories.
Good.
Yeah, that was, there's a couple, different theories about what people have seen or what they haven't seen.
Yeah.
But that was like the last real good sighting I got was
Until now.
well, yeah, until now. But then there's I think it was in the Mothman Prophecies movie where they mentioned that there was.
That's with Richard Gere, right?
Yes.
Oh, it's been so long since I've seen
I think they mentioned in the movie that there were sightings of Mothman near Chernobyl before it had its meltdown.
9/11.
Yeah, at 9/11. But there's people that are putting it on the internet that it actually happened. And it apparently didn't happen, that it was something just for the movie that they made up for the movie. But then people are taking it as fact. So, there's people saying that it was at Chernobyl. It was at 9/11. They said they saw it fly out.
Yeah, that's not in the movie. I was just throwing out there that I've
people
seen
that
photos.
Said they saw photos of it.
Yeah, and they look. I mean, they could just be photoshopped.
In 2007, there was a bridge in Minneapolis that collapsed. That I-35 bridge that collapsed that killed 13 people and injured 145. And I guess after that happened, reports began to surface that people said they saw a large bird-like figure by the bridge. But that's all kind of after the fact, so you don't know.
Right. Somebody
you don't
just
know.
making this up for sensationalism or whatever.
So there's lots of rumors that this Mothman thing appears at tragic historical events, but there's not a lot of good accounts that you can put a lot
or
of
evidence.
faith in and evidence.
There's really no evidence except for potentially photoshopped pictures.
Well, there's that one picture. I think it was like 2015 or 16. It was relatively recent, where the guy said he has a good picture of Mothman taking off. And when you see the picture, you're kind of like, whoa, what is that? But then when somebody tells you that the picture looks like an owl that had just grabbed a snake and was taking off into the air with a snake in its claws, you can kind of see that that's exactly what it looks like.
Suggestibility.
Yeah.
That's why, that's the same behind, you don't tell somebody what you think an EVP is saying before they listen to it, because that's all they're going to hear then.
But yeah, when you first see the picture, you're like, whoa. But then when you hear that explanation, you're like, yeah, that's kind of what it is.
We'll have to post links to all this
and there's supposed photo, like you said, the photo on the bridge. There's like a photo of 9/11. None of it, I think, really looks...
I mean, it could be photoshopped.
Yeah, none of it really looks very...
Unless I took the photo myself, I'm not going to believe it. It's just how I am.
Exactly.
It's an interesting theory, though. I mean,
It is. I just don't know. I don't know.
What I do find, like I said, though, intriguing about this is because the one around the bridge, I feel like that is the one where the photo was taken, because I remember reading an article that had that photo, but how it was all over the news. It was in the newspapers. It was on TV. Like, it was a big deal. It wasn't.
That's why I feel like the stuff that happened in Point Pleasant was legit. I think something was happening there. But I feel, in my personal opinion, I kind of think that's where it ended until the stuff in the recent news. Because the stuff in the recent news is kind of crazy. Should
we talk about that?
Yeah. So if you want to go into the recent sightings in the Chicago.
Yeah. So, on April, so I'm just going to kind of skim over this. On April 7th, a witness came forward to report the sighting of a large, 7-foot-tall, bat-like humanoid in the Lincoln Park neighborhood of Chicago, which, of course, is the same description that you've given for almost every... It's 7 foot tall. It's always 7 foot tall. Unless it's an NBA player who's, like, wearing a costume, because I think 7 feet is pretty average for those guys. So people have been hearing about this sighting and have been coming forward with their own experiences. Approximately 15 sightings of this alleged Mothman have been reported in the Chicago area. And we'll post a link to this article because there's a map that you can click on that gives like an overhead view of current sightings.
And there were a lot of sightings.
Yeah,
on
I was
map.
really surprised.
That really surprised me that there were that many. There were like 13 the last I read, it was up to 15 sightings.
Yeah, that's what it says here is 15. So it says that according to some witnesses, it bears a resemblance to the famous Mothman of Point Pleasant, which we just talked about, but others have described it as being more bat-like in appearance. But I think some of those descriptions kind of went back and forth between, one researcher argues it's probably a large owl. And the testimony concerning the appearance of the creature varies. One reoccurring theme seems to be consistent: the feeling of dread and doom that comes over the witnesses, and that's something I've read a lot about encounters.
I mean, there was that came up in the Point Pleasant stuff too, is that people just felt uneasy.
Yeah.
But again, that was some articles mentioned it, some didn't. So it's always hard to judge what's accurate or not.
So in the most recent incident on June 3rd, so we're talking like just a few weeks ago here, a couple was in the Lincoln Park area around 10 o'clock. That's Central Standard Time. The couple, who wishes to remain anonymous, of course, had just finished dinner, were out for a walk when they saw the strange being. It was 7 to 8 feet tall, solid black humanoid with wide membrane wings, which that's what makes me think of Jeepers Creepers, because that thing had those leathery,
the leathery
wings that you could see like the veins and stuff. Oh, creepy. It said that resembled the wings of a huge bat. The wingspan was at least 12 feet, which is ridiculous. The head was prominent and thinner than a human head. The back end of the body tapered to a point. No legs were noticed. Well, that's strange. So it's like
strange.
It's like a bat.
A lot of the sightings that I read about said they thought the wingspan was about 10 feet, 10 to 12 feet. So that fits in with that.
I mean, that is really, really big.
Yeah.
The figure was gliding quickly along the length of the street, heading east, which would be towards the lake, then suddenly ascended to the night sky. Neither heard any sound. Both witnesses told this Strickler, who is with Mysterious Universe, one of my favorite podcasts, that they felt a sense of foreboding and were still terrified almost an hour after the encounter. So I think that's where this story originated, was Mysterious Universe. If you guys wanted to go to their website and check it out, but we'll post a link.
It's a good site.
Yeah, I love those guys. If you haven't listened to their podcast, they're from Australia, and they're really, really funny, but they're also really good interviewers. They really dig into these topics, and they do a good job. They're very knowledgeable. The second case is an earlier sighting, which occurred back in March on the 22nd. A local truck driver and Chicago local, he was delivering a shipment when he noticed something strange in the air, and it looked like a flying Batmobile.
I saw that. I read that article. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it's Batman. He said, I was sitting in my semi-trailer around noon. That's interesting. Although that's not the only sighting that happened in the day, right?
No, there were a couple daylight sightings.
I saw this object coming from Route 55 in Cicero. I saw it gliding and, same like the first story, gliding and not too fast, no sound. I saw that it was not a drone and the size of a large car. I suppose something that it's 7 feet tall and wingspan of 12 feet, that would be about right then. It climbed higher and turned twice. I can tell you that it glided just like a bird. It went almost straight up and I lost it in the clouds. That's freaky. Bance believes, this is the truck driver, Billy Bance, believes that this incident has affected his life. He said, the more I speak of this, the worse my luck becomes. My mom died 3 weeks ago. I'm not sure what to think at this point. Bance, like many other people, reported seeing this strange flying humanoid over Chicago. Just want to know what's going on. So it says reports continued to come in over the months of April, May, and June. Mm-hmm. And then they talk about this podcast, The Acrylic Ranch.
Never heard of it.
It's a fleggling paranormal podcast,
so
much like ours. Went on their own night investigations to try and catch footage of the monster. While they did experience some odd battery drains on their equipment, nothing conclusive was found.
No, I wrote down 3 sightings in Chicago that I read. One of the first ones I read was the people on the boat. There were people on a boat somewhere. I don't know if it was.
Probably
I'm assuming it was
lake.
Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
They were on a boat, and they said they saw a flying creature that looked like a bat-sized person. But then they said a second one joined the first one.
A bat-sized person.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like
you mean a person-sized bat? I'm picturing like a tiny little.
Okay, you're right. You're right. See, now that would be cute.
That would be adorable.
Okay, you're right. Person-sized bat.
There you go.
And they said a second one joined, so there were actually two of them flying around. They said it resembled to them either a gargoyle or a human in a bat-like wingsuit.
Neither of those seem all that plausible.
No.
I'm going with Batman. I just feel like it's got to be Batman.
The second one I read was actually by a police officer, which
really
gives
that always
credibility
adds
to
some validity to it. Yeah.
A police officer was out walking with his son when he saw a large humanoid figure with wings fly over a tennis court in a park and disappear behind the field house.
Is this during the day again, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You always feel like this stuff's going to happen at night, so it's a little unnerving
and
when
then
people
this
are
last
seeing
one,
stuff.
I don't know if it's during the day or night, but it's just said another father and son saw the same figure and said it screeched an unsettling sound like the brakes of a train.
Oh.
And I've read a couple accounts that it gives off this weird screech.
Huh.
And the screech can really freak a person out.
Oh, yeah.
Just hearing that screech.
Well, it's funny how a couple people say there's no sound at all, and other people say that, they're hearing the screeching noise.
Yeah.
So I wonder what's the difference between those situations?
There's just been a lot of sightings in Chicago,
That's
that's freaking people there out, because if this is something that is like an omen of something really bad that's going to happen, that's uncomfortably close to us.
Yeah, it is a little close. That's
so,
like, what, an hour? Well, from here, yeah, it's like 2 hours, something like that.
So we will keep an eye on this. Anything else pops up in the news about this, we will discuss it in a future housekeeping.
Yeah, if you live in Wisconsin and you've seen something like this, I want to know about that.
Yeah, I would love
so I can
to hear
stay
about a Wisconsin.
really far away from that area.
Yeah, the Chicago sightings are pretty crazy. But at this point, you don't know if somebody is just trying to hop on the bandwagon and say,
I saw that.
Drank a 12-pack of Schlitz and I saw something.
Well, that's the problem with this day and age, is that everything's on the internet now, and word travels so fast, and it's not like back in the 60s where it was literally word of mouth.
And the movie The Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere, I think that kind of influenced a lot of people, even though that played pretty fast and loose with the history.
It was an interpretation
a decent movie.
of what happened.
One thing that was interesting in the movie that I didn't really touch on in here is, did you see the movie?
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
There's like that person or thing named Indrid Cold that calls him on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Indrid Cold thing came up a couple times in the Mothman stuff.
Really?
But it happened there, but it didn't really coincide with the Mothman stuff. But I didn't want to bring it up in this because I would like to do an episode on the Grinning Man.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
So, because Indrid Cold fits in with the Grinning Man stuff. And the Grinning Man kind of reminds me of the thing I saw in my bedroom when I was a kid.
Oh, the green thing?
The green thing. We'll discuss that probably on a podcast.
All these cliffhangers.
That was pretty creepy. But that kind of reminds me of that.
Oh,
Thinking Sideways did a decent episode on the Grinning Man. That's the only episode of theirs that legitimately creeped me out. But when I listened to it, I was in the middle of walking through the woods on a really foggy day. And it was like,
well, that'll do it. Sesame Street would probably creep you out in that situation.
So I'd like to do an episode on the Grinning Man.
Yeah, it just sounds creepy.
At some point. And that's where Indrid Cold will come in. But he kind of played a part in the movie.
Okay.
But the movie kind of shaped a lot of people's ideas of what the Mothman is.
What's separating, myth from fact, if there is fact.
But we'll keep an eye on the Chicago stuff because that's actually really interesting. And Barry, I think, is the one that brought up the Chicago sightings, but I didn't realize that there were that many sightings.
Well, and I'll have to look at the link on that documentary that I watched, that what they were researching up in the La Crosse area.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, Chicago's closer than La Crosse, but still, that's our...
I still feel like the Point Pleasant things were legitimate. Like something was
happening.
The Chicago one, there's a lot of stuff going on, so that really has piqued my interest.
They are at a record high for, violence and murders and shootings, and Milwaukee's not too far behind, so...
No, but something...
Mothman would have a field day here, too.
Something's going on. But now possible explanations.
Okay, I'm ready.
I have...
Aliens.
8.
Definitely aliens. Okay,
you've
got 8. Okay.
Explanation number 1, and this one pops up all the time, is a bird called the sandhill crane.
Oh, yes. Well, they're not that big, though.
No, and that's what they showed the couple.
They're mostly just have really long legs.
Well, they said that it has it can be 5 feet tall.
Yeah, they have a wide wingspan.
It has red-winged eyes.
Yep.
And it has a big wingspan.
They're kind of beautiful, though. I would never
I know, but they the thing is, it's not. They don't go to West Virginia.
Okay.
And people say maybe
they're
some...
here. They're everywhere here.
They said maybe some just happen to show up there, road trip or something. I don't know.
They might have some bird, though, the equivalent of the sandhill crane.
But they showed pictures of sandhill cranes to the people that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, at Marcella, and the couple that saw it at the TNT factory, and all of them said no. They said, number one, this thing has a long, skinny neck, and the Mothman they saw basically had no neck. It was just like a head on a torso. Mm-hmm. So they said no. They said that is not what we saw.
Okay.
And
I think that's someone who's scientific, just grasping.
And that goes with the second explanation, the barn owl. That seems to be the most popular explanation.
Are they that big, though?
I don't
I mean,
know.
clearly they're not 7 feet
no.
tall, but
I hate stuff like this because that's people just saying, "Oh, you just saw." You know,
right.
that'd be like if I thought I saw Bigfoot in the woods and somebody said, "No, you just saw like a really pissed off
It was
beaver."
a raccoon.
Yeah, it was just a beaver. It's a really mad raccoon.
Really big raccoon.
So I think that's people just pish-poshing what they saw.
Right.
But barn owl seems to be the one that comes up the most.
Yeah, that's the one
as
I've
far
heard the
as
most.
explanations.
Yep.
Because
their
they said
eyes,
it has red, the
yeah.
red eyes reflecting light. It screeches and
Yep.
it has a long wingspan.
Yep.
But
they're not 7 feet tall.
But no,
though.
and I think they showed owl pictures to the people that saw it in Point Pleasant too, and they're like, no.
And they were like, "I've seen an owl
That's an
before."
Owl. Yeah, and owls and sandhill cranes do not fly 100 miles an hour and chase a car.
No, and they usually don't fly straight up into the air either.
No,
like into the clouds.
So there's those two,
Okay.
and then there's the possibility that it's a hoax or a prank.
Well, sure.
Which I tend to think more that that's possible with the later sightings and not so much the Point Pleasant sightings, because at that time it was pretty new, and I don't think. But these days somebody be like, "I'm going to put on this outfit and go out there and pretend to be Mothman."
Yeah.
I don't really know if they would have done it in those days, but I just kind of feel like the Point Pleasant stuff is legit.
Well, and it's not. I mean, if it were somebody wearing a costume, how do they do the flying?
Yeah.
A lot of these people
Exactly.
saw it flying, and I don't.
Yep.
How would you fake that?
Yeah.
Unless it were like a kite or something. I don't know.
And the fourth possible explanation is mass hallucinations.
Huh.
And also,
I never liked that one.
Power of suggestion, where the first couple or the people in the cemetery saw something and told people, and then people are just freaked out if they see something and assume that that's what they're seeing is the Mothman.
Their mind just fills in the
Yes.
blanks.
So that's one possible, but I don't know. There's a lot of.
Is that what mass hallucination is?
I
The
think
mind
mass
is
hallucination
filling in the blanks.
or power of suggestion.
Suggestibility, yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
your mind filling in the blanks, thinking that you're hearing all this stuff about Mothman, and you see like a raccoon in your yard with eyes glowing back at you, and you assume that's what it is.
Yeah. A teeny tiny Mothman.
Yes.
Or a human.
And explanation or theory number 5 is a mutated bird. Because of the TNT factory and the munitions and stuff being there, there's a lot of chemicals that seeped into the ground, and they said that area is just full of tunnels.
Okay.
And
who knows what the heck is living down there?
They suggested a mutated bird, but
okay.
Like I think they said on the Thinking Sideways podcast, a mutated bird is more like a bird that gets cancer from this stuff, not a bird that
grows 7
feet
tall.
tall.
Is it near a nuclear plant?
I mean,
that's a little different.
Yeah.
Is it in, Manitowoc maybe?
So a mutated bird, I don't know.
Kiwani?
I don't know if I buy that one.
No.
Theory number 6, aliens.
That's it.
And they said that ties in with the lights that people saw in the sky.
And the interruption to electronics.
And the electronics. And there were reports, but again, you got to take this with a grain of salt, of Men in Black sightings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Point Pleasant. After people would see the Mothman, there were reports, like I said, with the harassing phone calls saying you didn't see anything, or Men in Black coming there and convincing them to shut up about it and not tell anybody about it. So some people are pretty certain that it was aliens, that the Mothman were actually aliens. Don't know.
It's not what I'm picturing of what an alien would look like, but I've never seen one.
Yeah. No, but they said with the lights, it ties in with the strange lights in the sky.
Yeah. Well, I can see that,
Theory number 7 is one of the very recent theories, which actually, I don't know, I kind of like this one, is Green Berets.
Really?
Yes.
As in the military, guys?
As in the military.
Okay.
2014, in the 2014 issue of Soldier of Fortune magazine, my subscription must have ran out in 2013 because I didn't get that one. But the 2014 Soldier of Fortune magazine had an article stating that Army Special Operation Forces near Point Pleasant around that time were testing high-altitude, low-opening parachutes called halo parachutes, and that Green Berets were jumping from planes testing these, and they would be wearing paint that would glow in the dark in order for them to be followed where they landed.
Okay.
So they say that that's why there were reports of lights in the sky, because they were jumping out of these planes.
Sure.
And that's what the Men in Black were the military saying, no, you didn't really see anything.
Are there photos of what
there was a photo of what it looked like?
Looks
yes, there was. And it actually, I don't know. It was
Because
actually
if you think about people who do like base diving, they have those flaps. That
this
look
one
like
doesn't.
wings.
This one was like a little
Okay.
parachute over the guy, but I'll show you a picture after the podcast.
That's the most plausible explanation
I
I've ever heard.
I actually find that very plausible, but also the glow in the dark paint. Why would the eyes be red?
Yeah.
And why would they have chased the car at 100 miles an hour?
Yeah. I mean, I could see it jumping out of the sky and startling someone, but how could it fly next to you and shoot up into the air?
The article that I read this said this could account for some of the sightings where it lands in somebody's yard.
Right.
You know, and they don't know what to make of it.
Flies out of the trees.
Not flies out of the trees, but just like one of the ones where they see a Mothman standing in their yard. It could have been one of these green berets.
Sure.
You
I
know?
feel like you'd know if it were like a face, though.
I know.
Do they wear some
would
kind of
too,
weird
but at
helmet?
this point, if it's
or-
going around that there's this thing called the Mothman, you're going to freak out and not...
Yeah, that's
You're just
true.
going to assume that it's the Mothman.
Yeah, you're not going to stand there asking questions.
No, but that's actually a really recent theory, and I kind of
like it.
I do kind of like that one too, that it was actually Green Berets testing out parachute equipment.
Okay.
So, I don't know. And theory number 8, that it's an otherworldly creature. That it's the Mothman.
Yeah, it's the Mothman.
It's just the Mothman.
I feel like the Green Berets are the most plausible.
I do too.
Or ancient aliens.
I do too. And the thing is, big disclaimer here, I am not one for cryptid stuff. Bigfoot stuff, like that stuff.
I love Bigfoot.
I don't.
love
I
Bigfoot.
don't. I'm not. I'm a huge skeptic when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
I'm a healthy skeptic.
I think after reading some of the stuff about what happened in Point Pleasant, I think something was going on there.
Mm-hmm. Too many reports close together that were so similar.
But it doesn't make sense that it disappeared, that there were no more sightings after this. You know, where if it was something like Bigfoot, you would think it would turn up there over the years all the time.
Right.
So I don't know. I think there's something to this. I don't know which of those theories I don't really subscribe to the owl or the sandhill crane.
I think.
But the parachute one kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that could account for a percentage of the sightings.
You know
I don't think it would necessarily be every. I think the first sighting with the kids, with the couple, I think that's legit. I think they saw something weird. I really do think there was something there.
I think that the Green Berets actually could link to the screeching, because have you ever heard a radio?
No, that's very true. I didn't even think of that. That's very true.
Any experimental equipment they had could have messed with other people, someone's TV reception.
Yeah,
I mean, that kind of ties into those.
The end of the test just coincided with the bridge accidentally collapsing. So people, tied it.
Yeah.
So the Green Beret one is actually, I think, really plausible.
I think so too. Who knows what kind of technology they were playing with?
We'll post
the
link to that article on our Facebook page too.
Yeah, I want to see the picture of this parachute.
I thought that was pretty interesting. So I don't know. I think that the couple with their cousin saw something. Mm-hmm. It followed them. It chased them at 100 miles an hour back to the police station. The deputy said he knew them, that they wouldn't lie about this. Everybody corroborated their story.
Yeah.
So I think something happened there.
What else could it have been?
I don't know, but I feel like those 3 that I talked about, with the guy with his dog, with the TV, the young woman with her infant daughter, where they saw it peering through the windows of the house, which is super creepy.
Every time you say that, I get the chills.
I know. And the one with the couple with the TNT factory, I think those are Mothman sightings. I think something was there.
Yeah.
The stuff after it, I don't know.
Yeah. Because those 3 all had, characteristics about the experiences that don't really play out any other explanation.
Yeah. So I think those were actual something. And the rest, I don't know. I don't think that it showed up near 9/11 or Chernobyl or any of those things. I think,
or at least we haven't seen evidence that's
but
viable.
I think that people after the fact will say, yeah, I saw this bad thing there. Mm-hmm. And now with drones, you could make a drone look like something. It's just these days I would take anything with a grain of salt. But the Chicago sightings are pretty interesting because there's been so many of them. But then you also got to wonder how many of those are feeding off each other and somebody wanting
jump on
their 15 minutes of fame, saying, I'm going to go on there and say that. There was one account I read where this girl talked about how she saw it after watching that show with the Kardashians, but then she went into way too much detail on what was going on in the episode of Kardashians that she watched. I was like, really?
And less about Mothman?
Yeah. Now, if something catastrophic happens in Chicago within the next year, then we'll see what I think
Yeah.
after that.
Right.
But people there are pretty freaked out about this.
Well, I don't want to see one.
No, I don't really want to see one either.
But if you're listening, strangers, and you've seen one, or you know someone who's seen one, tell us about it.
Or if you have any theories that we didn't mention,
yeah,
or any ideas, you have it all, please let us know.
yeah,
And
this is a good one.
Bring that up in a future episode.
Yeah, I like this topic.
I do too.
I think it's because I am like you. I'm really on the fence about.
Yeah, this is another topic that I went into like, no, I don't.
And then you started.
And then
reading
once I started reading it, it was like, wow.
Maybe.
But that's just the first couple.
Maybe you'll change your mind about Bigfoot once we start getting in.
No, I don't. No Bigfoot. We'll do an episode about him.
We have to because I'm a big fan.
We'll do an episode about him, but I just don't buy that there is a creature that existed for this long that we haven't found.
There's no evidence of it.
There's no body. There's no
biological evidence.
No big pile of Bigfoot poop that people found.
Yeah.
Nothing. I just don't. I don't know. I mean, I've seen some pretty crazy pictures and videos.
What freaks me out are the vocalizations that people have recorded. There's some really creepy stuff.
Yeah.
But
is that thunder?
That might be thunder.
Ooh. Scary.
Creepy. In an old school during a thunderstorm.
School where we hear noises all the time, which are really weird.
We do. We'll do some investigating, guys, and let you know if there's anything in this building with us. But
I don't know. We've heard some weird noises. Heard some weird things while we're in here, just alone recording stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, on that
creepy note,
let us know what you think of Mothman. If you have any ideas about what it is or what it wants. Did you see that little stuffed Mothman I put on the Facebook page?
Yeah.
He's so cute. I kind of want that.
If only he looked like that in real life.
I know.
Or a tiny little human-sized bat.
Or
a tiny little bat-sized human. See, now I said it wrong. I want to see a little
bat-sized human look like Tinkerbell.
Yep.
So,
cute.
On that note, thank you for listening. Get back to us, please, with any feedback. The easiest place to reach us is on our Facebook page or our email account, thestrangesessions@gmail.com. Or a lot of people have actually been leaving comments on our YouTube, underneath our episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is awesome too.
I've never even
my buddy
looked.
Shane leaves a lot of comments.
I should go and look there.
Lets us know what he thinks.
I didn't know anybody was doing that on YouTube. Thanks, guys. I'm going to go read those.
Yes.
That's exciting.
And we're
I just
gradually
always look
getting
at the
more
Facebook
fans
page.
here and there.
Nice.
So, any word on when we're going to get on iTunes?
RSS feed. I will talk to my old school media compadres and we'll get that squared away.
Give an old school
Joe and
media
I can
shout
probably, old school media. This here podcast you're listening to, The Strange Sessions, is an old school media production along with Paranormal Palaver. I know some of our listeners also listen to Paranormal Palaver. There's another one called Friday Nights with Jeff and Joe, not paranormal in nature, but kind of fun to listen to, and a few others that are in the works. So
we might release our own other one where Krista and I, when we're getting our equipment ready, we're basically recording us eating beef jerky. It's us eating beef jerky and talking
Oreos.
about how good it is and going, oh, this is so good. So maybe we'll release.
And I'm so tired.
Yeah, we'll release that. That'll be the bonus. That'll be the paid content.
Yeah.
You got to pay to.
Yeah, that's Patreon material for sure. Deep cuts.
You got to pay to hear us eat and bitch about how tired.
Tender bites.
How tired and sore we are.
And cranky, and how this is going to be a really exciting podcast. But hopefully it turned out pretty good.
I think it turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
I think this is a really interesting topic, and I went from, this is another one of these ones we did where I went from not really being
Just
that
kinda
into it to reading
it.
more and more about it and thinking that there's something there. So I don't know.
Maybe we'll be converting a listener too. We'll see.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I always like converting. But let us know what you think of this.
Yeah. And get ready for episode 6.
What are we going to do in the next episode?
I don't know.
Okay.
If you guys have
we know
any
at some
suggestions,
point
that'd be great.
We talked about shadow people with Brittany and Devin.
And I have a list here of the first time we met. We wanted to talk about the suicide forest, Mandela effect, black-eyed kids, missing Maura Murray. We have to talk about that topic because I love that topic. Serial killers, Bigfoot. Phone calls, ghostly
Missing
phone
411 we want to do.
Missing 411,
Missing
big
411
time.
is pretty crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know if any of those topics sparks your imagination or your interest. Let us know.
Let us know as soon as you can. If not, we will pick some topic for the
You'll
next
just
episode.
get what you get.
Yeah, you're gonna like it.
Yep.
So until next time, thank you for listening.
And stay strange.